Alrighty, guys, and welcome back to the NBL Show presented by Fox Sport. I am your host, Josh Higgins, and as always, I am joined by my co-host, Mr. Jai Shadlow. Jai, mate, welcome back to another episode of the NBL Show. Going to be an exciting episode in this particular one. Plenty to chat about from the week that was. But how are you, mate?
Yeah, doing well. Pretty good round as always. Felt there's a lot of drama this time, and we say that every round, but especially this round, considering there's that amount of games, a lot of off-court and then post-game stuff, which is pretty interesting from coaches. It seems like there's a bit of tension rising within the league, especially in the officiating area. So plenty to talk about into that aspect.
Yeah, there's plenty to talk about, and obviously the on-court as well. We've been speaking about blowouts, and granted there were still a few blowouts last round and some pretty poor basketball games, but that Sunday sort of time slot was absolutely incredible, and we'll dive into that relatively shortly as well. But today's episode, as always, we're going to recap the round that was, which was round 6 of NBL action. We're going to jump into some of the new imports. Since we last spoke, there's been a couple of new signings in the NBL, so we'll talk about obviously where they've come from and what they are going to produce potentially in the NBL as well. From there, we'll jump into 5 segments in 5 minutes, the rapid fire segment, which Jai brought to us a handful of weeks ago as well. That's going to be good fun. And then we'll wrap it out with a round 7 preview with some of the biggest talking points and our tips and predictions. So Jai, let's jump into it as well. As you'll see, we have made a few little adjustments to the graphics down below as well, but we're going to kick it off with the round 6 recap. And I want to start off with the South East Melbourne Phoenix. And they went 2-0 in the round that was, and are really starting to flex their muscles a lot now. 5-2 to start the season. Now, I was very off them, to be fair, at the start of the season. But the way that Josh King has built this roster and then is showing the on-court capabilities of it, I've got they'll probably be out pretty similar to the time that this episode is dropped. So I've got Nathan Sobey as number 3 on the MVP power rankings. And there's a number of reasons why, but the team's production is a massive reason as why he's catapulted in that rankings as well. But what are your thoughts on them, mate? Because they've had 2 impressive wins, and their last 3 games in particular have been blowouts where Nathan Sobey's been incredible. And I never thought I'd see the day, but Jordan Hunter is over 50% three-point shooter as well, mate. So what are some of your thoughts?
Crazy. I don't think anyone expected this. I think Jordan Hunter has hit 12 threes now for the season, which is double what Kendrick Davis and Matthew Dellavedova have hit, which is crazy. I feel like he's doing like an NBA version of Lopez.
Yes.
He's just transitioning to that where he's like, you can actually shoot it now. And then I'd expect his 3-point attempts to go up a lot more now. But you mentioned Sobey. I think everyone knows that been following my Twitter. I've been a massive anti-Sobey kind of person. I don't want to say hater because these guys are just doing their job and stuff, but I don't personally the way he plays. I feel like it's just, high risk, high reward. And this round was very high reward for him. He's had 2 great games. And the team just looks so well balanced now. And it seems like they're finally getting into their groove. Hunter Maldonado, I was always semi-high on, and I had a lot of people come in my DMs saying, freaking out. I'm like, just give him a chance because he's actually quite a good player. And now he's had 36 assists for the season with only 5 turnovers, which is wild. John Brown's doing everything. They've got a pretty surprisingly deep bench now. Where's a window impressed in his debut, and over time, I spoke to Josh King the other week, and he said, give him a few more games, he'll eventually get to that 24 to 25 minute range, which is pretty good. But they're just doing good. They just had big games. Josh King is I did a post today mentioning that Josh King has now won 19 out of 28 games for Sam since taking over. So this round coming up will be his literal 1-year anniversary of debuting when they beat Tasmania. But you mentioned it before that these guys, they're just getting it done. They're just surprising. I did not have a game of hope to make top 6 this season. So egg on my face for that. But so far, so good.
Yeah, definitely. I think you're bang on with the depth and the sort of characters that we're starting to see blossom under Josh King. I saw, it was Luke Cooper, it might have been on X, and he put a thing out saying that has there been a better career progression over the last couple of seasons than Owen Foxwell? Kind of gone from a nobody to a role player, now starting for South East Melbourne Phoenix. Like, he's kind of that guy who's, and obviously played with the Boomers as well in the Asia Cup as well. He's sort of like stepping up and having that really incredible impact for the team. And you're probably mixing with Angus Glover. We've spoken about Jordan Hunter as well. So we know how important that local crop is. And I think over the last 3 games, Sobe's averaging 27.5 points per game, 11 or 21 from deep, which is just incredible. And the team's 3-0 in 3 huge blowout wins as well. So they're really starting to ride that momentum. And I want to touch on one thing quickly before we do move on. Under Josh King, we've probably seen it be a more defensive style system where it's all about holding teams to under 80 points roughly, and then, potentially scoring last season 85 points per game. I didn't think, even with this roster, because typically the guys they've brought in have been more defensive first, you'd say imports as well, with John Brown, Wezawundu to that degree. Hunter Maldonado is probably the only guy who's more offensive-minded than defensive-minded, but they're averaging just under 100 points per game to start the season. So number 1 points per game average in the NBL. So that is just an incredible statistic and a feat for them as well. To be 5-2, they're the second best team in it right now personally. I've got them actually ahead of Adelaide just because I trust the rotation a little bit more. And I think you've seen from top to bottom, those guys have instant impacts and long impacts as well across the start of the season, where Adelaide's kind of been led by Bryce, then you've got Zion, you've got Isaac, and then it's kind of a bit of a scramble for who steps up next for that team as well. So, this team is absolutely incredible. There's a long season ahead of them. Right now, though, they are a legit contender when we are looking at the early stage of the season as well. Semi-final appearance last year, and then they're obviously going on to potentially some bigger and better things. Now, on the other flip side of that, though, Jai, the Sydney Kings. And we've got Brian Goorjian down here looking absolutely bemused, as you can see in the bottom left corner. And there's a number of reasons as to why. Now, we're going to probably park the Brian Goorjian conversation for a little bit later in the show with 5 segments in 5 minutes. But what is going on with the Sydney Kings, Jai? The floor is yours right now, because I've got a couple of takes on this team, but they are not even close to performing where they should be with the roster they do have constructed.
Yeah, I feel like we've just gotten to the same point as last year. I was going through old posts from literally a week last year in the same time frame, and I was posting the exact same arguments with Goorjian. Like, nothing's changed. I don't understand how this roster can be this bad. And it sounds harsh, but like, I watched that game against Tassie, and even though they had the lead, I think John Casey was commentating, and he said, like, and because he's such a wizard with his stuff, he's like, I reckon Tasmania will have another push, and there was like 4 minutes to go. I'm just like, there's no way. And lo and behold, they just grit and grind, dude. Like, Scott Roth just tells his troops just do not stop playing. Like, just assume you're 0-0, just keep playing, and they just did it. And it was like 4 plays in a row where Kendrick Davis just brought the ball up, did not pass it once, played ISO ball, and took a really bad mid-range shot. And then I'm just looking at it going, like, I think they cannot have Kendrick and Daly on the floor at the same time anymore. It's just, I don't know what their role is when they're doing it.
I was about to just ask you that, though. Like, that is the biggest thing for me right now. And it's when we saw Kendrick leading the offense, and I can't remember the exact team on the floor, but I think it was something along the lines of Bull Quall, Jalen Galloway, Quatnoy, and Tim Suarez. And that team looked really, really energetic. And then they subbed out Matthew Dellavedova for Kendrick Davis, and the dynamic of the team instantly changed. And, then we see at the start of the game where they play together and it just doesn't look that great. Like, 100%, like, if we're sitting here right now, do you believe that they kind of need to be like a sub-in, sub-out type combination? And it's going to ruin minutes for one of those guys, because you're probably going to see one of those guys drop to potentially just under the 20 minutes per game mark if they do that. But surely they can't be on the court much longer together for this season.
Well, you sub the guy who's 35 years old. Like, I get Daly's a legend of Australian basketball and stuff, but like, he's not playing that great, and he's forcing a lot of shots. He took a 3. And obviously everyone knows Eddie's shooting at threes, but like, he took a 3 and he was wide open. And I reckon he waited about 3 seconds because you could see the mental battle he was going through. He did not want to shoot it, and he did, and it was an air ball. So I think they need to experiment with a new roster lineup like the one you mentioned before. I think Jalen Gallo would probably best suit starting, and just give it a crack. Like, I can't believe, looking at Kendrick Davis, who led the league last year and assisted 8, assists a game has dropped down to like 3.4, which is just wild. Like, I get it. Like, it's always going to take a hit with being with Delhi and stuff, but there just needs to be. You can't lose out trying something new now because your back's against the wall. People expect results, and I think their next game's against Melbourne United, which is just like, what better way to experiment? Do it against United, and if you come out with a win, you're like wicked. Like, we've solved the issue here. But yeah, it's not good. I don't know what, and then poor shooting and everything. Like, it's just, does this make Kalila Pepe more valuable? Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like,
and that's the big question as well.
Yeah. I don't know if they're going to bring in another import. I think they should, but yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, there's just so many concerns. And when we're talking about subbing players, I don't think we can't go too much further past Xavier Cooks. I know you're paying him $1 million a season, but their offense when he is on the court is so clunky, and he's not providing the defensive tangibilities and consistency, which we have probably seen over the last couple of seasons. He had that patch last week or the week before where he had a couple of good games, and everyone's like, oh, cool, he's finally turning the table. He's understanding how to play with Dellavedova and Kendrick Davis. But I'm sorry, Delhi should be making this guy better. And, Delhi gets to the right spots. He's still a savvy veteran player. I know his impact hasn't been as good, but he still gets to the right spots. He leads his bigs to the right spots. But Xavier Cooks just has no confidence. And they've looked so much better and I think the perfect starting lineup for them is Kendrick Davis. It's a lineup that I said before. It's Kendrick Davis, Bull Quall, Jalen Galloway, Quat Noyes, the small ball 4, and then obviously Tim Suarez inside. And they can all spread the floor. They can all defend well, and they can all kind of guard positions below them or above them. Quat Noy could play not every single minute, but could play some small ball 5. He's a lot bigger than what you actually give him as well in terms of size and athleticism. Jalen Galloway, in terms of verticality, can, really look at good in those switch defense situations as well. And then you've got Bull Quall, who can kind of guard point guard to small forward as well. So they've got that versatility. And then off the bench, you've got Matthew Dellavedova, you've got, Sean Bruce coming off there. You've got Xavier Cooks coming off there as well. The only concern, he probably has to play that small ball 5, which has been somewhat of a concern for them as well to start the season. But there's just so many problems with the Sydney Kings. And it's very easy to just go and chuck it on Brian Goorjian, and we most likely will in a couple of minutes as well. But there are a lot of concerns going on for this team, which haven't just been this season, though. And that is where the pressure does fall on our man, Brian Goorjian, because nothing has really been fixed at all. But let's jump into clearly what the game of the round was. And we'll briefly touch on this one because the next part of the round 6 wrap-up is going to be a bit of a debate, I think, as well, and a bit of a big talking point. But the game of the season, Melbourne versus Adelaide 36ers, this game was just absolutely incredible. We saw it all. We saw the Bryce Cotton have moments, but then Melbourne shut him down. We saw Chris Goulding had his moments, and we saw the Chris Goulding, Mike Wells, the Chris Goulding, Dejan Vasiljevic. There was just Jesse Edwards. He's one of your boys who you've had an absolute pleasure watching and sort of covering as well to start this NBL season. What did you make of this game, mate? Because this has been the biggest and best game to start the NBL season, and it was hyped up, and it well and truly lived up to expectations.
Yeah, I think this is. I think the NBL is breathing a sigh of relief with how the games were going leading up into Sunday. Like this definitely, as you mentioned, it definitely lived up to the hype. I was a bit disappointed. I really wanted Adelaide to win because, like, if people were following me on Twitter and stuff, I don't really have a real. I don't really follow a team. I try and follow the success of the league and just players in general. So I really wanted to see Adelaide just flex it and to make it more competitive. And like they took United to 1 point. Like that I would not be annoyed if I was Wells heading back on the plane back to Adelaide like that. You take a positive out of that. I felt the Tyson Walker 3 was huge. And that was from, again, Jesse Edwards' rebound, tipped it out to him. I thought DJ's game-winning attempt 3 probably a bit rushed, and he kind of could have probably stepped in a little bit closer because he does those quarter-court threes just like, I don't know. I'm not a big fan of DJ, but in terms of the way he plays, I'm like, you got a bit more time. You could have just stepped in and made it a higher percentage shot. But yeah, I thought that the game overall was good. It looked very intense, playoff basketball. I like the confrontation between Goulding and Wells, which is cool. I'd love to know what he said. But my biggest takeaway, I think, like early last week, I did an article on Zion Cheatham on how, and I spoke to him on this and how he was taking a big like cut back in his role. Like he's used to being a 3-4 scoring dunking machine and stuff. And so in this season with Adelaide, he's taken it back a bit, and he's just being the facilitator in terms of setting screens, making sure Bryce is open, getting the rebounds. And he spoke about that, and he said that was a big learning curve for him, but he's enjoying the process. And then what does he do? He comes out and just gets a triple-double. And he just loves playing United. That was his third double-double in 4 games playing them. It just goes to show that I think it was the first time he took more than 6 field goal attempts, and look what he did. So I think if Adelaide are going to take a big positive, they can take away the fact that they have someone like Zylan Cheatham who's willing. There's not many players in the league who are willing to take that role, where on nights they're like, can you just switch it on tonight? Or can you actually just revert back and just be your role player? And I think that's a really good thing to have in a player.
Yeah, I loved his performance. I think it was 22, 12 and 9 or something like that, and just had an incredible impact across the floor as well. And Mike Wells, after the game, you spoke about, going back home to Adelaide in a really positive mindset. That is all he sort of spoke about in that post-game press conference. It was all about, we are there, we are ready, this team has got it all. To have that sort of challenge and to constantly fight back and go on little runs and then sort of give away little runs, but then switch the momentum back as well in your favour against Melbourne United, who has been as red hot as any team in probably NBL history would start a season. He took a lot of positives out of that. And I want to quickly highlight that Dejan Vasiljevic last play as well. For me personally, I hate it when you have a shooter as the inbounder, because you instantly know teams are going to be thinking, okay, it's a quick 1-2 pass. We're going to create a lot of diversions, which the Adelaide 36ers did. And then DJ sort of has this, like you mentioned, this sort of, near half-court haymaker, essentially, has to throw up with 2.5 seconds, which he had a lot more time to sort of create and get into some sort of shot as well. But for me, I prefer your centers in those situations passing. One, because you got the height. I know they're not the best passes, but you've then got the extra shooting option running around on the court. So in that particular play, you had 3 guys go to Bryce Cotton, essentially. And because they all ran to that corner, that close corner with Dejan Vasiljevic. And then it was Isaac Humphries who had pushed up, got to the corner of the 3-point line there and got the ball off Dejan Vasiljevic to create that play. So
would you have a Xavier Cooks in that situation?
Not a chance at all. After seeing what he did on Sunday, there's no way you're having an Xavier Cooks passing the ball as well. But, I just didn't like the play. But again, we're looking at a regular season game. We're in round 6. The sort of heights aren't extenuated a lot. But again, it's little habits that, you kind of live and die by. But I loved seeing Mike Wells put Dejan Vasiljevic in situations to score. I think he probably hasn't done the best job of that to start the season. That's why DJ is having a career low start to the season as well, which has been quite poor for the Adelaide 36ers. But let's jump in to the last segment that we are going to talk about on the round 6 wrap-up as well. And that is, it's more about the referees, but we're going to start with John Riley's comments against the Perth Wildcats. And there were a couple of controversial calls in that particular game, and there's been a lot of controversial calls over the past couple of weeks. I think ever since the Brian Goorjian ejection for the first time in his NBL career, there's been a very big and I think different shift in the way people are looking at NBL refereeing. And again, like we mentioned last week, we were very positive the first 2 or 3 rounds, but it's completely flipped now. And we're now looking at referees changing and reshaping games as well. So I want to highlight John Riley's comments. So in the post-game press conference, they asked a few questions about Joe Luala-Chul, and over his last couple of games, he has been fouling out of games quite consistently. The minutes are coming down, from what we've seen from the start of the season to now, and it's obviously affecting the Perth Wildcats without guys like Dylan Windler, with the sacking of Mason Jones, or the mutual release there with Mason Jones, and Christian Doolittle is no longer that type of guy right now, or is not playing to that type of character as he was last season. So Joe Luala-Chul is very, very important. And then the question kind of flipped a little bit to, what do you think of the refereeing landscape? And halfway through the question, I'm in there and I'm watching John Riley just laughing and smiling, and you can just see he's ready to kind of say something. And basically what he said along the lines, it was, if you are doing something to the capacity where you are getting paid to do something in basketball, you have to understand and realize that the players are the superstars and they are the only superstars. And you can read into that whatever way you want to read into that. But the way that I look at that, what he is saying right there is that no one is coming to watch the referees blow their whistle and paying hundreds of dollars every single season to do so. They're coming to watch the players. And you've got to allow the players to play their brand of basketball night in, night out. And I think that's been the biggest concern, is that the sort of physicality was set at the start of the season, and now slowly it's been taken away as we head into round 6. Now, you got a couple of thoughts. We spoke off air about this earlier today as well. You've got a couple of thoughts into the refereeing as well. Now, we have seen some NBA G League referees come over here, and maybe some of them aren't adjusting as clearly to the FIBA rules. So what have you kind of got on the refereeing as well before I come back on a little bit later and give a few more of my thoughts?
Yeah, I don't know enough about these guys to like give a real personal opinion on like what the actual issue is, but it just looks to me when I watch the games that they're really struggling to adapt to the physicality of FIBA and NBL combined. And it's just, there was a play, and I cannot for the life of me remember what play it was, but it was the American blonde-haired ref. I do not know his name, so forgive me, but he called a foul on something, and then there was like nothing was happening for like 10 to 15 seconds, and then he walked up to the head refs and kind of was just like, he was confused of what he called, and he needs just to get clarification saying like, are we allowed to do this? And I'm just sitting there going like, it's not a good look, boys. Like, this is, especially on the back of, this is all on the back of like gorge and ejection stuff. So it's really crap to see that like in the first 2 weeks, everyone was praising the refs, and now it's literally just back to where where it ended last season at like an all-time low pretty much.
Yeah, I think you couldn't be more bang on. And you know, you look at this round in particular, the John Brown ejection, I know Pete Hawley was massive on that. Like, you can't be given that as a second ejection. And I don't necessarily like that sort of messaging as well. Like, is there different, you know, why are we treating different situations with technical fouls and everything like that? But again, it's bang on. A second technical foul, you are shaping the game instantly by releasing a player. You know, it doesn't matter what player you're reshaping the way a team is structured for that particular game by kicking somebody out. But the one that shocked me the most, and I saw it live, and again, I am distancing myself from the Perth Wildcats. Let me just make that clear. I know I have said on my own podcast years ago, you know, I'm a Perth Wildcats supporter. Doing this job, you can't support a team. But seeing the JaVale McGee play live, where you could clearly see he was out of bounds, and I know there's photos and everything as well, but there is a photo where Michael Aylen, I believe it was, is looking at JaVale McGee.
Just
his
literally
foot
like
is
this.
directly planted on the court, and he doesn't call it. And then that possession turns into a 3-point shot, which I believe put the Hawks up by 3 points at that particular game and point of the match, which was very deep into the fourth quarter. It swung the momentum slightly. It took an Elijah Pepper 3-point shot to get the game back to level. But it was one of those plays where you just kind of like, make the call. And at the end of the day, right, this is the thing as well. I believe Justin Tatum had a challenge. So if you make that call and he doesn't believe that's the right call, they'll challenge it. But make the bloody call. That's the most important thing that you're there to do. So, you know, I don't know. They can't, they're damned if they do, they're damned if they don't, realistically, referees, aren't they?
This is where the issue is like the fans are going to see that, and we all sit at home and watch that and go, did he not see that? That is ridiculous. Like, He had the best view out of everyone. But then if a coach or a player points it out straight away in a situation and goes, hold on, how the hell did you miss that? Like, in the context of the game, you'd be like raging. I personally would be going, hold on, stop the game. How did you not see that? That's the point where the refs start losing me and the fans, because I know 9 out of 10 times they'll respond with gaslighting, pretty much, being like, hold on, you know, I didn't see it. And then they're like, oh, no, Tech, you're out because and we spoke about this last week. And it's the same thing. Like, you're giving me a tech because I'm complaining that you've missed a really bad call. Like, it all starts with the ref. So I'm not sure. And I think this is a problem with last year. I mean, it got to a point, even though it started with Justin Tatum, that like he accused basically the refs of racism, of how they were like reffing and stuff. So it got to that point last season. And I think all fans want is just the NBL to come out on like even the NBL communications Twitter page just to be like, guys, we actually understand. We know we're going to speak to the refs and we're going to try and do better. I think that's all it will take. That's all you need.
100%.
The fact that there's no communication is just going to allow someone like me to just fill the missing gaps of information with my personal opinions. And then I'm going to get angry because I'm annoyed at the situation from that. So all they need to do is just communicate and be like, hey guys, we are aware of these bad calls. Next time we'll do better. If they come out tomorrow and say, and then whoever that ref was said, look, I missed that call in JaVale. That's 100% my bad. I guarantee you everyone will be like, thank you. That's all I wanted. That is all I wanted. And that's how you can
100%.
simmer all attention.
Yeah, and I think you got to look at, before we move on to the imports as well, you've got to look at the AFL to a certain degree. And don't get me wrong, there are moments where it absolutely annoys fans when
Yeah,
the umps don't make the right call and then the AFL come out and say, you know, they made the wrong call. And it's kind of like, well, yeah, of course they did. And it kind of creates this uproar. But at least you've got that transparency. And then you see
yeah,
you see some referees make the wrong call and they don't get a game the next week. And it's kind of their way of like, okay, think about this now, get better and improve from that. Whereas I don't think the NBL has the sort of class underneath them with the referees coming through where they can go and give a Thorn, whatever his name is, a week off. Or, you know, I don't know any of these referees, to be completely frank, because again, we're watching the superstars, not
they're
the
not the
referees.
superstars.
Yeah, but you know, there's no sort of you've done a bad job, have a week off, and that's where I think it's getting quite frustrating because we're seeing problems compound with no accountability, and fans are kind of like, how is he still umpiring? Because if this was a player, which we've seen in the NBL, he'd be sacked and back on the way to wherever he's from. So there is so much frustration around referees, and I hope the NBL is listening right now, and everyone at the NBL is listening, because there needs to be some sort of transparency and accountability from the NBL to be able to hold these referees in line, just like we do with players, coaches, and everyone else as well. So again, let's move on. It's been an incredible round number 6, and that is the round 6 wrap up. But let's jump into the import raider, David Duke Jr., QJ Peterson. I haven't got him on there as well. We ran out a bit of space, but Dakota Matthews as well. All 3 new imports. Now, Dakota Matthews has joined the Brisbane Bullets. Looks like an absolute stud. This is what the Bullets needed. They needed a scorer. He was 39% from the 3-point line last season. I believe that was in the NBA G League for the Indiana Mad Ants. So, Jai, mate, what have you got? Because he looks all the goods and is going to fit, I think personally, really well into this Brisbane Bullets lineup.
Yeah, so Matthews, I was actually excited they signed him. He's a bona fide sharpshooter. Like, he's going to drain threes. I think he's perfect for the Brisbane Bullets. I think he'll slot in nicely, presuming Adams is still on the roster in a month's time. I think that's going to be a good starting 5 with them. And he can slot into the 2 and 3 role. He's 6'4", so I prefer him at the set to 2 spot. But like, I reckon he score, depending on how many field goal attempts Stu Lash, I don't know his blueprint or how they're going to use him and stuff, but he could be a 15 to 16 point per game scorer. Like, he's basically a 40% shooter from deep, which is wild. But yeah, I think Brisbane got a good one here, and I think, I'm not knowing the numbers, but I think he become relatively cheap than other imports as well.
Yeah, I love this signing. I think you're probably not getting the athleticism as what you had with a Javon Freeman-Liberty, the guy who can kind of put the ball on the court and really attack the basket and draw some fouls and get to the free throw line. But you're going to get that guy who, I think what you have with Tyrell Harrison is you have a genuine pick and roll threat. And when you use him in the pick and roll with a guy like Jalen Adams, or even if it's a Casey Prather as well, when he rolls, he's going to draw, and we have seen that throughout the season, the sort of help defense. And that's when you've got shooters in the corner. And for a guy like Matthews in the corner to be left wide open and to be able to sort of use that to your advantage as well, he is the perfect mold for that type of player for the Brisbane Bullets. And I haven't watched too much film, but small little pieces that I have watched, he's not just a sharp shooting stand in the corner, catch and shoot guy. He can create as well, which is also exciting, because then he can give him the ball in late game situations, and then you've hopefully got another closer. You've already got Casey Prather, and then you have Dakota Matthews. And then if Jalen Adams is on and still is a part of the Bullets, like we just mentioned there as well, you've got potentially 3 closers for your team who can score in multiple different ways. So that makes them even more dangerous going forward. And I think with this signing, they could rocket up the ladder a little bit. They've been in games all season long.
They have.
And I think they've been better than a lot of people have given them credit for. And I know that the comments around Stu Lash are still going to be there, but he's starting to put some little things together. And he's also starting to write a few plays I noticed in the last game as well. So a massive signing for the Brisbane Bullets. Now, the second signing was David Duke Jr. Now, this is an exciting signing for the Perth Wildcats, to be fair. I'm not sure, though, it's the right piece. Again, we all still believe it needs to be a true point guard. And I'm going to dive in a little bit on him as well. So 6'4" combo guard will play majority point guard minutes, but also can sort of slide to the shooting guard, depending on the lineups as well. The only time I really see him sliding to the shooting guard, though, is when Jaron Riley's on the floor. I just hope, and again, don't take this the wrong way, Perth Wildcats fans, but I just hope Dante Russo-Nance gets less minutes going forward. He's not up to the NBL level right now, unfortunately, and hopefully he does at some stage, but as of right now, there's no way.
He's still young.
But he's played 49 games of experience over in the NBA as well with the Brooklyn Nets and the San Antonio Spurs. Most recently played for the Austin Spurs in the NBA G League as well. Averaged around 18 points per game, 5 assists on pretty decent shooting numbers as well. I think he was low 30% from the 3-point line and sort of low 40s as well from the field. So he's probably not your volume scorer, which I think Perth Wildcats fans are going to be somewhat disappointed with, because there's kind of two ways you need to look at this. They needed a point guard who could play make, and then they also need someone who can score. And you're trying to find a blend of both, and I'm not sure they have found it with this guy. But when I was listening to the press conference when he landed in WA, which was today, he sort of kept talking about he's a very attacking player, and it was more attacking to the basket. And I'm just not sure that's going to help the Perth Wildcats when you've already got Joe Lawalachul and Christian Doolittle, guys who kind of want to play down low and in the paint as well. So I don't know. We're going to see. What are your thoughts on Duke Jr., mate?
Yeah, I think I'm in agreement with you. I think he's an exciting player, but like I feel like Perth haven't learned from Mason Jones. Like before Mason Jones, I think everyone was begging for a pure point guard. Then Mason Jones came and we're like, yeah, he's sweet, like a G League MVP, Finals MVP. Didn't work out. It would really suck if this didn't work out. Like it would be really embarrassing if it got to the point like we have to let him go. I don't think that's the case, because I think this guy's a bit more well-rounded than Mason Jones. I did speak to a coach last week about just giving me any review of David Duke, of what he thinks the type of player he is. And like we won't mention the coach, but they were saying that like he's not great at one thing, but he's very good at everything. He's good at everything. He's not great at one particular thing. Like essentially he's an all-rounder. And like you mentioned before, he's like low 30 3-point shooter. But if you watch some of his highlight reels, he does attack a lot, drops the shoulder a bit, and likes to play a bit aggressive. And I mentioned to you before filming, the body shape and size he gives me is like Bryce Hamilton, but like with Christian Doolittle arms. He's quite strong for a 6'4", like he's quite thick. So I think he will do well, but if that's the player they need, I don't see how we'll see in the long term. But like, I wish they got a point guard. I just wish they got like, I don't know if this is like a new thing where it's just like now Jaron really is just going to get more. He's playing fantastic, so you're going to get more game time. I'm not sure, but we'll see. So like hindsight, awesome. So we could be coming back in a month's time and be like praising him. So we'll see how we go.
Yeah, I think the lineup's going to be Duke Jr. and when Sunday Detch starts to get it going as well, personally, he'll be the starting shooting guard essentially as well as that sort of lock up 3-and-D type guy as well. Yeah. So it's probably a nice combination. Detch can also facilitate and handle the ball as well to a decent level as well. So I think that combination will be quite nice. But I just hope that the Perth Wildcats give this guy more than, I think it was 5 games that Mason Jones had to prove himself. But again, fingers crossed, and we'll sort of see what happens as well. Now, we'll jump into the last signing as well of the round, QJ Peterson for the Illawarra Hawks. Seeing some of these statistics that you've got here, mate, like take it away, because some of these numbers, I'm seeing a 60-point game in 2023, 2024. So have a bit of fun with this one, mate. He looks like an absolute bucket.
Yeah, so if you go and watch QJ Peterson highlights, he's not tall, he's 6 foot, but he moves and shoots similar to NBL 24 champion Jordan Crawford. And he obviously Crawford's like 5'7", but they move the same. He will, if he's on a fast break, he's going to pull up from court to court and shoot the 3, and probably 38% of the time hit it. So last season he's been playing the CBA in China for the last several seasons. Everyone will have their debate on how good the competition is in China. There's still a lot of imports there. You still got to play competitive basketball. Like it's not a slouch league. It's just a little bit corrupt, but you still got to put up numbers. So last season, he had 2 games where he had 48 points, 6 rebounds, and he hit 11 out of 16 threes. He followed that up with a 35-point, 10 rebound, 10 assist a game. And then the season before, he had a 60-point game with 12 rebounds and 7 assists, and he scored 50-plus 3 occasions on that season as well. So it just goes to show you the type of player this guy is. Like he plays at a very fast pace, which I think will suit Illawarra Hawks. And he played for Jinyang Flying Tigers, which is the same team as Ashton Hagens, who never actually touched Australian soil, with Montrezl Harrell and Rob Edwards from Cairns Taipans last year. So this guy, hopefully he got some chatted to some of these guys and got some like a bit of scouting on how the league is and stuff. I think he's going to be a plug and play. He's just going to come straight off the bat. It would not shock me if he drops 20 points in his first game, depending on how many minutes Tatum decides to play him. But based on how their record's going, I think they just need him to score and get results. So, yeah, be excited for this guy. I think he's going to be putting up a lot of highlight reels.
Well, I'm most excited for the pick and roll with him and JaVale McGee as well. And hopefully we start to see, like we've started to see over the last couple of weeks, Tyler Harvey really finding his feet for the Illawarra Hawks as well. Now you get that facilitating guard next to him who takes probably a little bit of pressure as well on the offensive end as well. I just think you're probably not going to be seeing as much sort of create for himself, Tyler Harvey. You're going to see him coming off of maybe some back screens and really some actions as well in the corner and hitting some wide open shots as well. So again, tick, tick, tick for the Illawarra Hawks. Really, really exciting signings for all of them. Now let's jump into 5 segments in 5 minutes. This time I've got 3 of the questions. You've got 2 of the questions. So Jai, we've got 1 minute each here. I'm going to be very, very abrupt on the 1 minute. Last time, I think we had a few that went over the minute, but we're going to be very, very abrupt. So what is my first question, mate? Take it away.
All right. So first question is, are South East Melbourne a genuine threat?
100% the South East Melbourne are a genuine threat in the NBL 26 season. We've spoken about it. Defensive ability, the offensive ability is there. They have depth galore. Geordie Hunter, if he can stay out of foul trouble, is going to be one of the more underrated players in NBL 26. Weza Wundu, when he gets his feet under him, just like they've given the time with Hunter Maldonado as well to really find his feet, that combination is going to be very, very lethal. And we've obviously spoken about Nathan Sobey, a genuine MVP threat as well. So when you've got one of the best coaches in the NBL mixed with one of the more deep and I guess all around offensively and defensively lineups as well, this is a recipe for this team being a genuine contender after a semi-final loss last season. Jai, your first question. When will Brian Goorjian be sacked?
I don't think it's going to be happening this season. I think Brian Goorjian's done enough in his career to go out on his terms. And I'm not saying he sounds like he's like retiring and decaying away through our very eyes, but the team's not doing well. That's not the whole blame should not go on him. Yes, he has some questionable plays and roster movements and substitutions and stuff. We all know Bogut is breathing down his neck and stuff. Chris Prongrass, the GM, has got 1 more year and he'll finish off this season. And when he goes, I think Gorge will go with him. But I do not see he will not go this season. Like even if they lose the next 10, I think Goorjian is just a bit disrespectful as well. But I think his job is safe for the season.
Massive.
All right. Next question for you. Can anyone contend Bryce Cotton for MVP?
Mate, this is the $1 million one, I think, as well. And I'm actually going to say yes. I think there are a handful of players in the NBL who can contend with Bryce Cotton for the MVP. JaVale McGee is one. And with QJ Peterson into the lineup now, they're going to start winning some basketball games. They're going to play exciting. They're going to play fast. Now, that could have a bit of a counteracting effect with JaVale McGee because maybe the minutes will go down with the pace of play potentially increasing. But his numbers, 22.7 points, 10.7 rebounds, absolutely dominating. Defensively, 2.5 blocks and steals are at 1.7 per game as well. So he is an absolute stud. And then also the other player who I have to throw in there, my man, Casey Prather. Very, very hot on him. I have been for a long period of time. The NBL is finally starting to jump on the Casey Prather bandwagon. I know Derek Rucker didn't even have him in his top 10. All of a sudden, he's an MVP candidate. Come on, Ruck, get your stuff together. But Casey Prather is a genuine MVP candidate. 24.7 points per game, 6.6 rebounds, career best in field goal percentage and 3-point percentage as well. So he is having one of those seasons. And Dakota Matthews entering the lineup takes a lot of pressure off of him, but also is going to free him up to make some big-time plays. So 2 players right now, I think, are right behind Bryce Cotton in the MVP conversation. Jai, last question for you, though, my man. Are the Cairns Taipans a serious chance to go on another 15-game win streak? But before you go on with it, congratulations, though, mate. You've escaped forfeit with the 5-game losing streak we have seen over the Cairns Taipans last 5 games. But take it away, mate. This is going to be an interesting one for sure.
Yes, thank you. And just quickly for context, people, whoever's listening for the first time, three rounds ago, I said the Cairns would lose the next 5 games in a row, and they did. If they didn't, I would have to do a dare. So thankfully, I don't have to do that anymore. We'll do another one, though. I'll come up with some stupid freaking prediction. But anyway, so I think... So Cairns have lost their last 6. The schedule does not look good. They're down Jack McVeigh, Wardenberg. Admiral Schofield looks very frustrated. Rayne Smith, personally, is having a pretty good season. But they are losing by an average of 18.5 points a game. They have lost by 25 plus out of five out of 9 games. Ridiculous. And last season, despite how bad they were doing, they had 15 games where they scored 90 plus. They had yet to score 90 at all throughout the season. I think it's weird. Adam Ford coming back, not a great decision, and it's just ironic that they spent the most money they've done, and they're probably worse off than last season. It's just, it's not good. I feel bad for Cairns Taipan supporters.
Yeah, it's a tough one. Do you think they go on the 15-game losing streak though?
Oh yeah, to answer the original question, yeah, I do. I think they lose. Yeah. So if you want to do that, that'll be the next one. I think they will lose the next 9.
Wow, massive.
It's a big call,
massive.
But we'll come back in a month and a half.
Definitely, mate. What's the last one?
All right, last one for you is, who will be the next person gone in the NBL, player or coach?
Yeah, so this is the interesting one, and I wanted to throw the coach in there as well. And I think the easy option is Jalen Adams of the Brisbane Bullets. But if they can start to string some games together and win some games of basketball, maybe that does sort of save his job to a certain degree as well. And I think I saw it on your X as well a handful of weeks ago at NBL Pleb. You sort of spoke about David Duke Jr. being a guy of interest for the Brisbane Bullets as well. So that kind of smells a little bit of alarm bells for me, and that was post, I believe, the Dakota Matthews signing as well. So he was already signed and secured, and then they were looking at a point guard potentially. So that only smells one thing: Jalen Adams' job's gone. But I'm going to throw it and go a little bit further as well in this one. I think the next person to be sacked, and I highly doubt this is going to happen, but it probably might and should happen, is Adam Ford being sacked from the Cairns Taipans. Now, again, I highly doubt it because he's been brought back to the club. They've given him that opportunity. But at the same time as well, you've got to look at it from a different perspective. They've given him the keys to the city. And again, he's been handed injuries to Sam Wardenberg and Jack McVeigh, which I sympathise for. But losing your 2 best players shouldn't give you an out for, like you mentioned, I'm going to piggyback on some of your statistics there, 25 plus point losses in 5 of your 9 games. And I believe 4 of them have been 30 plus losses as well. Yep. So there's no way that a team should be losing in the NBL by 30 plus points 4 out of your 9 games and an average losing margin of roughly 18.4 points per game. So again, I think he's going to be the first coach potentially moved on. It would be quite a shock, to be completely honest with you. But I just don't think we'll see him next season at all at the Cairns Taipans, and he could be one on the way out. So that'll wrap up 5 segments in 5 minutes, a couple of controversial takes there as well. But nonetheless, loving this segment. I like the rapid fire nature of it as well.
Yeah,
so
me too.
Been a good one that you brought over, mate. But let's jump into the round 7 preview. We'll probably spend the next sort of 5 to 10 minutes talking about some of the games coming up in round number 7. And I'm looking at the schedule, and we'll go through our tips very, very shortly as well. But there are a couple of big games, I think, and big runs for teams. I look out the Tasmania Jack Jumpers, who now play their next 5 games at home, and in this particular round have the Perth Wildcats and the Cairns Taipans. Just a quick one of them before we dive into a few of these teams. Do they go 2-0 in this round?
Who?
The Tasmania Jack Jumpers against the Perth Wildcats and the Cairns Taipans. Yeah. And that's sort of one where we look at it. And I don't really dive into them too much because I think those 2 games are kind of must-wins for the Tasmania Jack Jumpers. The Wildcats coming off of a disappointing couple of weeks, and the Taipans, we've obviously mentioned them as well. But I want to dive into the Brisbane Bullets a little bit here. And I've got Stu Lash down there on the board, as you can see, sort of getting up and about and getting into his players as well. They've got the Sunshine Stoush, they believe they call it, with the Cairns Taipans on Thursday night, and then they match up on Saturday against the Sydney Kings. This is a must-win 2-0 week for the Brisbane Bullets, with Dakota Matthews most likely to join this team as well. I'd assume potentially against the Cairns Taipans. What a game to get an import going. Do you think they go 2-0? And if they don't, what are you sort of thinking about the Brisbane Bullets in terms of consistency and games they most likely should be winning?
I think they have to come out of this round at least 1-1. I think losing to Cairns is just a step backwards, especially with Dakota Matthews coming in. I believe he has started training with the team and he will be playing. The Sydney one is a bit. I mean, they're playing at home, so you give them a little bit based on Sydney's form and everything. So. Yeah, they can get away with a win there, but 1-1, that has to be like the limit. If they come out 2-0, awesome. That's just chef's kiss. That's great for Stu Lash. But the Cairns one's a big one, and then you get a bit of a freebie against Sydney.
Yeah, well, I think they'd go back to 500. I think they're 3-5 right now. So you get back to 5-5 after 7 rounds, after the controversy that they have sort of gone through.
3-6 right now.
3-6. Okay, so it'll be one game under 500. So it's still 5-6 at this point of the season is a pretty good sort of record. We are seeing,
considering how they started.
100%, and that's the thing as well. And hopefully, we've talked up Dakota Matthews, and let's hope he does play to some of the sort of form and statistics that we have been speaking about. But I think they're a genuine chance to go 2-0. But the flip side of it, though, the Sydney Kings, they obviously play the Bullets, but then they play Melbourne United. And that game, we were speaking about this off air, and I said to you, I was like, I don't know, just has that feeling where a team and a big, proud club like the Sydney Kings are just getting smashed, potentially could be coming off a loss against the Brisbane Bullets. That could be the game. And we're going to sit here until Melbourne United lose a game going, is this the one they lose? Is this? And, it sort of creates a fun environment. But maybe, is this the one that Melbourne United lose the Sydney Kings?
I mean, I thought it would be Adelaide, but, no one likes playing, especially, it's odd because teams on streaks, especially at 9-0, you kind of the enthusiasm and the energy to continue that is not there as much as it was when you were starting we got 3 in a row and stuff. So I'm not sure if the hunger will be there, but who doesn't want to start the season 10-0, and they'll break their team record as well. So that is a good incentive alone for them. But it's a danger game. It's weird because we just talked about how bad Sydney is in Gorgian, but this is how the narrative can switch so quickly. If they come out and win, we'll be like, Gorgian, yes, you had it in you all along. We knew it. This is why you're the GOAT. So, yeah, we wouldn't be surprised if we come back in a week's time and we discuss how Sydney stopped the run and now they're looking like their former self. And Xavier Cooks hit 2 free throws, went 2 for 2, and we're all celebrating. So, I don't know. We'll see how we go. But, yeah, danger game.
Yeah. Definitely danger game. They last played on the 8th of October, where Melbourne United won that game 107-93 in Sydney as well. So that game will be in Melbourne this time around. So again, going to be a little bit of a danger game. Now, I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit here, Jai, but I'll give you a couple of moments to think about it before you do answer it. But what's your big call of the week? I'll take it away first, looking at these games as well and the slate of games. My big call of the week is that the Illawarra Hawks go 2-0. Now, they start off on Friday night against the New Zealand Breakers, and then they play against the Adelaide 36ers on Sunday in Adelaide. Now, I think they're a bit of an interesting matchup. Historically, Wani Swakala-Bullock has done a very good job on Bryce Cotton. He's been one of few players in the league to sort of somewhat limit his impact. And then you've got the JaVale McGee sort of matchup with the sort of combination of Zylan Cheatham and obviously Isaac Humphries as well, with Jonah Bolden potentially playing a bit of an impact role in that sort of combination there as well. So that's my big call. Again, it's relying on sort of what you've been talking about with QJ Peterson and Tyler Harvey continuing to find his feet and sort of firing as well. So that's my big call. What is your big call of round number 7, mate?
Yeah, so I'm going to go back to what we're just discussing because I'm kind of hyped up on it a bit. I think Sydney go 2-0 this round. I think they cannot get any worse. I hope they cannot get any worse. But I think they take down Brisbane in a real tight match. I think Brisbane will be within 5 points. And then they go to John Cain and they defeat Melbourne United and ruin the streak. I think that would just be total pure NBL. Because nothing's ever predictable in this freaking league. That's as much as I want it to be, it's not. There's always something that's just left field. So that'd be mine. So I'm going to Sydney 2-0.
Massive. All right. I'm hoping that one's the case. I think I've had them in my talking points articles over the past probably month. Is this the round the Sydney Kings go 2-0, and they have not ticked that box just yet? So for your sake, mate, I'll leave the Kings off of talking points heading into round number 7 as well.
Thank you very much.
Hopefully go 2-0 in this particular round. But a long round, this one, though. We're probably going to be recording this game on Monday night, so it'll probably be drawing the Melbourne United Sydney Kings game. So we'll probably kind of have the scores sort of ticking over in the corner as well, just because these weeks are just becoming shorter and shorter. So from Wednesday night, we see Ignite Cup action with the Wildcats taking on the Tasmania Jack Jumpers, and the pre-Melbourne Cup fixture with the Melbourne United take on the Sydney Kings on Monday, 7:30 p.m. Australian Eastern Time. I always get myself mixed up with that. 4:30 WA time, nice and easy as well for us over here. We love an early game as well. But it's going to be an incredible round of NBL action. Now, Jai, we will wrap the episode up today with our tips and predictions. So last week, a little bit of an interesting one for the both of us. I've even fallen further behind now, which is always great. I'm at 25 of 40 on the season so far. You're currently sitting at 30 of 40. Now, I'm just going to make a quick amendment to one of my tips, just so it is on the camera and we cannot change off the camera. I'm just going to go in line with one of my bold predictions for the round. Now, first game of the round, we've got the Perth Wildcats taking on the Tasmania Jack Jumpers. I've tipped the Perth Wildcats just because David Duke Jr. is going to play. I believe Dylan Windler is also going to play. So a couple of big ins. They've had a poor couple of weeks, so that's what I'm going. You have tipped the Tasmania Jack Jumpers, which is the safe bet, and I am silly by going against that. But once again, I'm trying to make up points as well. Then we have the Brisbane Bullets taking on the Cairns Taipans. We have both picked the Brisbane Bullets in that particular game. Similar with the New Zealand Breakers taking on the Illawarra Hawks. We've both picked the Illawarra Hawks. We then have the Tasmania Jack Jumpers taking on the Cairns Taipans. Clearly, both taking the Tasmania Jack Jumpers there. We then have the Sydney Kings taking on the Brisbane Bullets. I have also picked Sydney as well as yourself in that particular game. South East Melbourne Phoenix versus Perth. We have both picked South East Melbourne Phoenix. Adelaide 36 has taken on the Illawarra Hawks. You've chosen Adelaide. I've taken the Illawarra Hawks just to go in line with that prediction. And we've actually both picked Melbourne United to lose to the Sydney Kings and it be their first official loss of the season. So going to be a very big round, as it always is with our tips and predictions. But once again, though, I have been very, very poor to start the season. So hopefully I can bring a few little things back. But that will wrap up today's episode of the NBL Show. I think we're about 7 episodes in, Jai, and I'm going to speak for ourselves, for both of us, I should say right now. I think that was probably our best episode so far from start to finish as well. So thoroughly enjoying doing these, and we're starting to find our feet consistently more and building the chemistry on the screen as well, which is always a very, very important piece of it all, mate. But what are your thoughts, mate? This is going to be an incredible round of NBL action, and obviously I think it was a very good show from the both of us, mate.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think the chemistry is getting better, and I'm a bit of an introvert, so it's good for me to get out of my shell a little bit, and if anyone wants to leave feedback in the comments and stuff, I'm all for constructive feedback. I will add that some people have been DMing me and stuff, so there are some key injuries that people want to know if they're coming back. So I don't think Jack McVeigh is going to come back this round, but that is based off just a hunch because it's only been 2 weeks since he's gone, and I know Adam Ford was kind of saying 4 weeks. I don't believe he's been training with the team, so he could miraculously come and play this round, but as of now, I don't think he's playing.
Will still Hickey, in the splint though as well. Sorry to cut you off
exactly
that,
right.
But still in the splint, yeah.
And Will Hickey has been training all week, and I wouldn't be shocked if he makes his NBL 26 debut in their first game at home as well, in front of the home fans.
Ooh.
Which would be pretty cool.
That is an exciting one. I remember Justin Tatum was in Melbourne. I think they were playing South East Melbourne Phoenix. They got absolutely annihilated. He sort of said that Will Hickey will be training for the first week and he'll be at least 2 weeks away. So that kind of does obviously concur with that timeline as well, which would be absolutely massive.
It has to be a historic eye injury. I've never seen an eye injury have put a player out this much. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's a weird one, but we'll go from there as well. And I guess the other one, we didn't actually touch on it throughout the show. You just reminded me as well. Sam Wardenberg, if you're listening still here, bit of a juicy thing as well. Some people reached out to yourself sort of questioning why Sam Wardenberg wasn't on the bench and hasn't been on the bench to start the season. Very interesting because we've seen Jack McVeigh on the bench.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird.
It's weird. I don't know if it's something to look into, but it's just every time you see an injured player, they're always there on the bench. But I had not seen Sam Wardenberg at all this season on the bench or anything. I know he's a very quiet dude. Speaking to people, he's very quiet and keeps to himself. But I thought I've never been a basketball player professionally, but it's just I'm not sure if that's a requirement based on your employment contract where you have to attend the games at home at least and be a support there. I presume he can start walking and stuff. I'm not sure what the context is around. I just found it weird. Someone brought up and was that's actually a really good point. I can't remember the last time I saw Sam Wardenberg. I think it was in Puerto Rico. That's the last time I watched him. So we'll see what happens there.
If you are a Cairns fan, though, and you have seen him at the arena, because sometimes the guys do sit in the stands. It's very, very rare, though. Let me just put that out there right now. Very, very rare. But sometimes as well, they just sit sort of in the tunnel as well, watching the game from afar as well. They don't really want to be sort of seen in the huddles and all that sort of stuff. But I have found, when you mentioned that, I found that very, very weird. When you've got guys, I can't remember his last name, but he was a DP last year. And I think he's just a training player this year. Something Dennis. He's sitting on the end of the bench for the Cairns Taipans, getting up and about in his training top and in his polo every single week. But Sam Wardenberg isn't. It's a weird look. And
Yeah.
you've got Jack McVeigh sitting as the fourth player on the bench, which is also strange for an injured player. It's normally, your first guy off the bench sort of spot as well. But I don't know, weird things going on there in Cairns as well. But nonetheless, that is going to wrap up the 7th edition of the NBL show presented by Fox Sport. If you want to keep up to date, though, with everything going on with the NBL world, make sure you go and check out Fox Sport on Facebook. Plenty of content there as well with links all the way back to all of our articles. And go and check out foxsport.com.au. And also go check us out on X as well. Pleb does an incredible job over there at the NBL Pleb or at NBL Pleb. I've finally changed my username from at Basketball Fix, so I'm now at Josh Higgins Fox, which is a good little thing as well. So finally got that one. I haven't used X too much, so I had to figure out how to do and change the nickname, but nonetheless, we've got there. But until next time, though, this has been another edition of the NBL show presented by Fox Sport, and we will see you next time.